Okay, we are live. Hello, friends. Hello. Like I said, I need to figure out how to work this. We are bringing on Anna Lozono, as I mentioned in my little stories a few minutes ago. She is a serial entrepreneur, formerly co-founder of Love Powered Co., and is now coaching startup entrepreneurs. So let me figure out how to add her. Right? Wait, how's this gonna work? Thank you for bearing with me. How are you? You look beautiful.
You got this. Hold on, I'm adjusting my view as well.
I think I need
Oh,
to
okay.
lose a pillow cushion here. One second. I have everything propped up. I'm like totally, I'm on the lanai.
And
Is
where
that
are
better?
you?
I'm in Florida. I'm visiting my parents.
I know it looks nice in blue skies and trees.
Yes, exactly. One second. Ah, wait. Okay. Thank you,
I
friends, for bearing with.
Oh my gosh, the last time we collaborated was
Mom
your
boss.
amazing event in
Mom
Toronto.
boss, and it was so freaking good,
Oh,
and so many like people made friends, and they were, collaborating afterwards. It was such a good vibe in that room. It's such good energy with the attendees, but like also the speakers.
so good. Are you going to do another event ever?
I don't know, like I've transitioned over into real estate, and like we had plans on doing another event, but then COVID, like that event was like 2 months
Oh,
before
I
COVID
know.
hit and the whole world shut down. So lots has changed in my
Lots
life
of
since then. Yeah, and for you too. Like that's one of the things I wanted to chat about. I did a little quick intro about very briefly about who you were, but when you and I met, exactly, we were doing Mom Boss an event, and you were co-founder of Love Powered Co., and you were since acquired.
Yes.
So I would love for you to chat a little bit about what that company was and sort of your, process and your journey through that a little bit. I know we're kind of like truncating it, but then also, getting a successful exit.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And it feels like so long ago, yet
Yeah,
not. Like I remember that event
I,
so clearly,
I
and we
know.
had technical difficulties when we were on stage, and it was, it's as if it was yesterday. But
Yeah.
so much has happened since. Obviously, the pandemic, which none of us were expecting or could have, prepared for. So we navigated a product-based business during COVID, which was insane, but such a learning curve. And I could say that we figured it out. And then we had a huge collaboration with Jillian Harris. We created a journal with her, which put us in the Jilly box. And at that moment, we always had a vision to exit. And I felt like the timing was then, like when we were on in momentum, on a high, in large scale brand awareness because of Jillian Harris and the collaboration. That's when we began the process of looking at being acquired, and we worked with a business broker for 9 months. And interestingly enough, we just were not finding the right potential buyer through working with the business broker, because a lot of it was just numbers focused. Like, if I buy you at this price, this is what's going to happen. And we really wanted to attract someone with heart and soul who would continue growing this beautiful product based company that really was created with loving intention and focused around mindset and empowering the next generation of mindful leaders. And so one day I was actually in London, Ontario. I had this gut feeling. I'm like, I have to hopped on my Instagram, and the woman who acquired Love Powered Co., and it's still thriving in existence and continues to grow, was on my Instagram. And
Wow.
so she reached out, said, I'm interested. We connected with the business broker, and that was another 6-month process, but we had a successful exit 2022. I naturally went on to coach and mentor women who wanted to launch their own businesses, whether in the service-based industry or in the product-based industry. And that's been an interesting journey ever since. And right now we're hanging out in Mexico for the winter. Kids are learning Spanish. And, this is, well, okay, I missed a whole other
I was
part
gonna
of
say,
that.
wait
So,
a second. You picked up, you sold everything, and you moved south. How many years ago has it been now? A year and a half, 2 years?
well, no, we're missing a whole piece of that story. So when pandemic hit, so this is actually all happening at the same time, we decided to sell everything we own in Oakville, and we went west. So we landed in British
Yes.
Columbia, explored the province for the entire year, and then ended up buying a beautiful home in Kelowna, which we still own. And that's when the acquisition happened. So we were already in British Columbia, and I decided to build another brand. And then Mexico just happened randomly over the last 18 months to come and explore and learn the language and build community. But it turned into also an insane self discovery journey for myself and really redefining what feminine leadership looks like, what this rebalanced masculine and feminine energy is all about for me, and how I bring this into that next level of what I'm
Yeah.
creating.
I love that you bring that up because that's one of my questions for later, just about, defining what that is, that masculine and feminine energy, and, how we can operate a bit differently. But we'll dive all into that. So yeah, so you grew Love Powered Co. From idea to exit, and now you're coaching women doing that. So tell me a little bit about, the types of women you coach. And also, the other thought I had when I was trying to come up with stuff for today was, there's so many women, and myself included, people in general, but especially moms and women, who have this idea, incessantly tapping them on the shoulder, which is what it feels like for me. And, the launch from either corporate or no job at all, meaning stay at home mom, which is a huge job, but you know what I mean. That leap and getting from idea in your head to taking those first steps, like what is the advice that you coach people on how to make that leap, and what sort of like words of advice do you have for people who find themselves in that position right now?
Yeah, well, for sure, it's just this awareness that there's no perfect time.
Yeah.
Because I remember when we were launching Love Powered Co., I had a 9-month old, and the month post launch, I found out I was pregnant with Sophie,
Oh
and
my
I was
God.
nauseous and sick. And we had these like thousands of units of affirmation cards arriving in Burlington, Ontario. And it was just like Lindy was going through a massive house renovation. Like there's no perfect time. And possibly that was like the worst possible time for us to launch. But it's you just never know. And so if you the way that I see it, and this is really tying in energetics piece, is like if you have an idea, if you've been blessed with a vision, inspiration, this is yours for a reason. And what I believe is that in the quantum field, all possibilities exist. And if you're not going to bring it to life, someone else will. And that's not to put in any fear under your asses, but it's like, make it happen. Like, we need to realize that, like, we get to do these
Yeah.
things. It's nothing is by coincidence. And what a blessing that you hold a vision, you hold an idea, and fear is very real.
Yeah.
It's present to protect us. It's present when we're embarking on something that is new. And hold it there. Thank you for trying to keep me safe, but I'm going after this because I have been blessed with this idea, with this inspiration, with this vision, with this product, with whatever you're looking to birth into reality. And then my second piece of advice is like hire a coach, because working with someone who's done what you're looking to do is always going to accelerate your path. And so how I tie this into like my last year hanging out in Mexico and just bringing it to the divine feminine is last year I realized that I was in the stage of startup within myself of like, I've done 15 years of personal growth and development and mindset work. But what is this next iteration of me going to feel like? Who is she going to be? And so what actually I did is I hired opposite of the people that I would normally work with. I
Interesting.
hired Neil Donald Walsh, Conversations with God author. Normally I'm immersed in personal development or business works. Now this is like real spirituality. Like he's the embodiment of, someone who has really mastered himself and created this life of service, impact, spirituality. And I'm like, I want to work with him. First of all, I never work with men, and I never worked with old men.
Yeah.
He's 80. And yet I had this draw to do everything opposite of what I would normally do. So I read
Interesting.
different books, hired different mentors. Now, this is not the advice if you're looking to build a startup. If you're looking to build a startup, hire me because that's what I do.
Yeah.
And yet,
Hire
I'm
someone who's done it.
and yet I'm so deeply committed to the next version of, which is doing things completely differently than you would
Yeah.
naturally do, which has been a fascinating journey in itself. But all to really summarize, like, don't take yourself, your idea, your vision, your business, your product, your life so seriously. Like, have fun with this. Like, we got one shot.
Yeah, I think that's key too, is like changing the framework around it from scary to exciting. Like they say that when you're nervous, that it's the same feeling in your body. It's just how your mind labels it, right?
Yes.
So if you instead of saying I'm so nervous, you can say I'm so excited, and the body feeling doesn't change. It's just the framing around it. And
Yeah.
I think the other thing is too is like the fear is an absolute.
Yeah.
There is no
Yeah.
no fear. There is no doing this, waiting for the fear to go away and waiting to be sure and then going to do it. That's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Anyone who started anything new ever from the beginning of time had doubt and insecurity and they were unsure, like all of those things. And then they took action anyway. And so I
Exactly.
think that's the really important thing too, is like if you're waiting for the fear to go away, it's not. So you have to do it at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And on top of that, there will never be perfect timing. So it's
Yeah.
it's it's kind of like motherhood, you know, you think you're prepared and yet it's nothing like you prepared for mentally. Like that's
Yeah.
business, that's entrepreneurship. And yet like how freaking cool that we get to do this.
Yeah, and you only like live once. And I think too, like I've always sort of looked at it when I'm having difficulty with something, whether it's making a decision or whether even if it's like a phase of life that I'm going through, I try to picture myself at like 90,
Yes.
like super old, sitting in a chair, like maybe can't do all the things, you know. So I remind myself like to enjoy it, to be more present. Am I going to regret not doing it? You know what I mean? I put
Mhm.
myself there and try to look back on this time. And
Yes.
sometimes that's just something that helps me.
Oh my gosh, that's like right now my favorite thing to do. And I just did a reel about it. It's like, what would my 60-year-old self tell my now 40-year-old self? And I mean, God, that's only 20 years from now. You know, you think back like I was 20 years ago. Like, holy shit, it's flown by so quickly. And so, yeah, you're going to absolutely regret the things that you didn't do. I had another aha moment. This is more life, not business, but like, I was thinking back, early 20s, living downtown Toronto in Liberty Village, total freedom, no
Yes,
children, just a dog.
I was in Liberty Village in my
You
20s
were?
too. Yes,
Maybe
like
we were neighbors. That's insane. And I was like, gosh, like, why didn't we travel more? You know,
yeah,
like that kind of thought. And so I brought it to the now. I'm like, okay, we're in the Mayan Riviera. Why don't we travel more? Because in 10 years, we're going to be like, oh my gosh, there was a moment in time where we only owned a golf cart and we lived in the Mayan Riviera for part of the year,
yeah,
but we didn't go and explore and travel because we were so cozy here.
yeah,
Like, so don't have regrets, like
totally.
follow that inspiration, follow that intuition. And gosh, it's all about the experiences that we're building along the way anyways.
Yeah. So speaking of intuition, this is something else I wanted to touch on because I feel like for me, and I'm sure a lot of people who are watching, you know, you have that little ping, that thing that tells you something, and then you don't listen to it, whether it made sense or not. Usually it doesn't make sense, and that's why you don't listen to it.
Yeah.
And then you really effing
Yeah.
regret it, right? Like you're like, I knew I should have, like, it's just so frustrating for me. So what I've been trying to do for the last little while and relatively unsuccessfully, I think, is trying to tap into my intuition more. And then if I do hear something, try to like follow it, even if it doesn't make sense at the time,
Mm.
like almost like trusting it and going with it. So, first of all, how can someone really tell if it's your intuition versus your mind? And then
Mm.
how can someone build that muscle? Because I believe that's what it is,
Yeah.
of listening to the intuition so that it's louder.
Mm. Such a good question. First and foremost, what I realized that is so deeply engraved and embedded in our North American culture is especially for women, right? That definition of success and hustling and working hard and proving ourselves and always being busy and constantly in the doing. And when you're in that, you're too busy to actually feel anything.
Yeah.
Because it's not a thinking, it's not a hearing, it's a feeling. And so, the first step is one, awareness, like, okay, I would actually love to hear my intuition more. Like, that's a powerful declaration. But two is creating those intentional moments or that white space within your calendar, within your agenda to sit and be. Like, yes, you can get those hits doing things, but when you're in the doing, there's motion, there's energy moving. Like, it's very difficult to be like, oh, there's my intuition speaking to me. Like, no, you're busy doing shit, right?
Yeah.
So it's cultivating that, practicing that as if you're building a muscle. And so it's choosing those moments of stillness. And it might just be a 3-minute pause break in between you switching tasks of whatever it is you're working on, right? Like maybe you're in between a showing and pitching new clients. Like take that pause break intentionally in between and be like, actually, right now I'm going to take 15 minutes. So what that looks like for me right now is it's very intentional. It's 15 minutes. And, I naturally have a more masculine energy. And so what I tend to do is structure things that are more feminine. And that's just how it works for me. And it's come through
Like
trial and
what?
error. So this is where I'm leading to. So for example, my meditation is more structured and that's what feels safe and nourishing and nurturing for me. So I sit down and I put my 2 fingers on my third eye, and then I do really gentle breathing, because also being like high powered type A masculine energy, naturally we gravitate towards more fiery actions. Like I know, like living in Kelowna, I would do Wim Hof breath work,
Yeah.
which is very fire, and then I would go cold plunge, like very masculine energy. So
Totally.
now in my softening, I'm choosing things that again are very different from what I would normally choose, and also like very like nourishing and nurturing for my nervous system. So this is what my 15 minutes of structured meditation looks like. So I put 2 fingers on my third eye, and then I breathe in with one nostril, pause, breathe out with the other. Then I switch fingers, breathe in, pause, breathe out with the other one. And I do that for 5 minutes approximately. I don't have a watch on, but I'm doing the breath work. And then what I do, and it's calming, what I do next is I really like put my hand on my heart and I just feel into the gratitude. Because really, when we talk about manifestation, the reason why most manifestations don't become a reality is because they live up here.
Mm.
And so
It's on
the
the
work,
list. It's in the
it's on
vision
the
board.
list. It's
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And honestly, this is the hardest work, and I'm in it right now. It's really cultivating the feeling. And
Yeah.
so let's continue with the meditation, then we can talk about, future self feeling, identity work. But when I'm feeling, the next piece is really like gratitude. So like not just thinking, this is why I no longer write out my gratitudes, because I'm like, as I'm writing it out, it's living up here. And
Yeah.
so hand to heart and feeling the gratitudes that come through, and they just come through like, oh gosh, like I'm so grateful for the sun on my face, right? Like it can be from, there's no judgment, big, small, whatever it is, whatever comes, but actually sitting with hand on heart and feeling it.
Yes.
And then the next piece of that, it rotates daily, but sometimes I just go into the visualization of the feeling of the thing that I'm creating, right? So if my
Yes.
visualization is to speak on stage promoting my new book in front of 10,000 people, like what does that feel like? So I can see it, but then what is the feeling of it? Now, the interesting with this piece of work is I had an intuitive hit. I was like, what I'm visualizing, yes, it's me in the future now, but it's still outside of me. So what I'm trying, literally what I'm trying, working on right now, because it's a work in progress, it's generating the feeling of what it will feel like to promote my book and speak on stage in front of 10,000 people with actually without that visualization. Right? So whether it's like,
Mhm.
again, deep gratitude, deep sense of purpose, fulfillment, like excitement because of the
Yeah.
impact, uh,
Yes.
you know, feeling that feeling without the visualization that's external of me. So like really cultivating these feelings, and it's fucking hard.
Yeah.
Like, but that's the secret to manifesting is
Yeah.
that feeling and
It's the
why most people,
feeling.
it's the feeling. And so, um,
Neville Goddard has a great book. It was called, I'm forgetting the name. I'll pop it into a post when but he does talks a lot about that, Neville Goddard, about like, it's
yes,
really about the feeling. It's not about, itemizing it. It's about feeling that you're there now and putting yourself in there, because that collapses time, right? It collapses time,
exactly.
and your body is now in the future, because when your mind doesn't know, your subconscious mind doesn't know between what's real and what's not, and you can imprint whatever you want onto it.
Yeah.
But you're right, it's tough, it's tricky.
It's tricky and yet the most important piece of it. And so the other thing, if I choose not to go into visualization, because yes, it's like that image in our mind is important, and yet like being able to get into those feelings faster throughout the day. So one thing is really paying attention throughout the day of the situations, experiences, and people that generate like that feeling that you're desiring from
Mm-hmm.
the outcomes that you're visualizing. And then that allows us to move faster into the feeling, right? Like someone pays a compliment and you're like, wow, like that felt very nice. I'm very grateful. Like how quickly can you move into that gratitude,
Yeah.
right? Um, the other thing that I wanted to say, so for example, yesterday I was recording a podcast and I was a bit nervous. This is like a mega big
Woo!
podcast. And
Congratulations,
so
that's exciting.
thank you. So I went to the ocean, and what I looked at is what feeling, like what embodiment do I want to bring to this podcast? And the word that came through intuitively, right? Again, this is me in white space, therefore I can hear and I can feel, I can see more clearly, was magnetism. So I'm like, okay, I want to bring magnetism to this podcast interview. What does magnetism feel like? Right? Because again,
Mm,
that's the
juicy.
most important work is the embodiment of this feeling. And so also this feeling of magnetism can now be transferred onto the vision of the stage, the vision of the book launch, the vision of, you know, whatever it is in the future that I'm calling in now through this work. So that's really my inspiration for you guys. It's like the feeling is number one. So what feelings does your future self desire, but by the experiences, goals that you're calling in, and how can you tap into that feeling
Yeah.
now? What's interesting is the resistance that comes up. So for example, if you stretch yourself, so let's talk about money. If you stretch yourself really far, like you meet an edge. So,
Like you want to hit a
yeah,
goal, or you're trying to come up with the goal that feels unattainable, like a C-type goal, as Bob Proctor would call them.
right. Well, let's play more with numbers. So, what's a monthly like? Tell me like a stretch goal. That's a monthly stretch goal of how much you want to make per month. But like, you know, we're talking like some serious
Yeah,
stretching.
77,000. That's about a million a year.
Okay, so 77,000 a month, which is very specific. I love it. How does it feel in your body?
Ugh, it feels, it's interesting. I want to say
Yeah.
peaceful, because I feel, but in reality, will 77, what I need to do to make
Yeah, no,
77,000, will
you're
that
going
feel peaceful? See, I
logical.
know. I just did it to myself.
You can't do that
Yeah,
because you're going
I know.
logical. Because when you attach it to the how, gosh, it feels like so much work, so much
Yeah,
responsibility, all the unknowns that come with it, and then you lose the magnetism.
yeah.
So this is the interesting thing. So I had a goal earlier this year of 250,000 a month. And then I spoke to a friend and she's like, well, Anna, if you're putting out a number to the universe, why don't you go bigger? Because the universe doesn't care if it's 77, if it's a million a month, it's just a
Yeah.
number. But the work is our own capacity to be able to
Yeah.
hold it.
And our
So
thoughts around what that number means,
me
right?
means exactly. So for me, what I've been playing around just for fun is okay, well, if I wrote down 250,000 a month, then what if it was a million a month? And what is the difference within me of someone who gets to hold this. And I can tell you that the resistance came from a feeling. So I would feel like pressure in my upper chest, pressure in my upper back. And I was like, this resistance, because it's so much to hold.
Yeah.
And then of course the stories of responsibility came around, and like managing people and the fear of like the how. Like, I don't know how right now. What I'm doing right now, actually, there's no freaking way coaching one-on-one that I would ever get there.
That's what I mean
Right.
about the how. It's like you
So
start to
that
do,
you start to do that, which great awareness. Thank you so much, ego, whoever, whatever, that's trying to keep me safe right now. But I know that I'm a badass and I'm meant for big impact in this world, and that I am absolutely worthy of holding $1 million months. And so the work began, and I became really obsessed with the how. Like, how do I do this, right? This is the logical masculine again. But I know for me, if I have a framework, that feels like safety and security in my nervous system.
mm-hmm.
So the work has been sitting there and like feeling into 1 million a month. Now, some clarity that came through. One is that number does absolutely nothing for me. It was actually giving that number meaning. And so, what does it mean in terms of generosity? What does it mean in terms of adventure, playfulness? Who's coming with me? What are we doing? What businesses am I
Yeah.
creating? What am I investing in? And you know, what I realized, and I already knew this of myself, but it's oftentimes so hard to be proud of ourselves. And so, one thing that I know about me is that I'm a very generous person when I
Yeah.
have money. And
Yeah.
so now this is going to be amplified, and I have goosebumps. And similarly, in this time frame, Sarah Blakely took her closest girlfriends on her yearly birthday trip. I have goosebumps. And she's been doing this for over 20 years. And someone asked her, you know, what is your favorite thing about being mega rich, like billionaire status? And she's like, that I get to spoil the people I love. And that just
Ooh,
gave me like
so
all
fun.
the feels. And I've been tapping into that feeling. So again, that like million a month, cool, checked it off the box, does nothing for me. But really, one is having like giving pathways to that amount of money, and what will that look like going into the feeling of those experiences. But
Yeah.
two is sitting with it and talking to my nervous system and being like, hey, you're worthy of holding this. You're smart enough to hold this. I trust you. You're safe. And like literally feeling like your body expanding to be able to hold it.
Mm.
And so I'm just going to challenge you to put an extra zero on that number and
All
get
right.
really freaking uncomfortable and really detached from the how. But the interesting thing that's happened in between that time frame of me like 10xing these numbers on paper is the expanded vision that came through, because I didn't have a how that would support that, but I kept like daily, I'm doing this work, the inspirations that come through. I have this now way bigger vision that I was holding before for brands that I want to create, and it's still out there. But it's little by little showing up, because my only work is to expand my capacity to hold and generate the feelings of.
Yeah. And now you're operating and thinking about ideas that are sort of like next level
Yes.
versus like your smaller goals, right? So you're opening your mind from like this to like this, right?
That's and this is the work and this is it. And so how fun is that? And also looking at this, like we get to do this. We get to play around with this.
Yeah, and I love that you keep going back to making it fun because that shifts your
Yeah.
energy. And I feel like too, like I feel like there's different types of listeners. Like I've been in personal development for a really long time. So a lot of my community is also, but there are a lot of people who really have only dipped their toe into it. So we are talking about energy quite a bit. Like, can you just very quickly outline like what is energy? Why should people give a shit about it? And more importantly, why should they care about their own energy? Like, what are the consequences potentially of not doing that?
Of course. I feel like for my own growth, it really started with mindset, right? Like that was the entry into personal development, and Bob Proctor and Wayne Dyer and Tony Robbins
Oh,
and all the greats and
geez.
the OGs, right? And there's so much brilliance in their work. And over the last 3 years, what I've layered on is this conversation of energetics. Now, there's energetics when we talk about the quantum realm and we talk about spirituality, and then there's energetics of your own energy, like you having the
Exactly.
energy to be able to do this, like your physical energy. And so let's start there because that's simple, right? So if we're talking about holding these large sums of money, holding this large global impact, well, physically, how do you feel? Like you're unable to generate this frequency, these emotions, if you feel like shit, if you're unhealthy, if you're smoking weed all day. Like, again, you do you. But I know for me, in order to be that highest version of self, that takes some radical responsibility when it comes to my health
Yeah.
and my physical capacity.
Yeah.
And so through perimenopause, that looks like weightlifting. It looks like minimizing my alcohol. You know, when I was very like rebellious against like, oh, Canadians are done drinking now, like this anti-drinking movement.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I love Kelowna wine. Like, oh my
Yeah.
God, I live in the Okanagan. Like, we have the best wine. But it's interesting since I turned 40, like my body doesn't tolerate
No,
it.
me too.
And
And
like
it sucks.
it sucks. Like two glasses of wine and I feel
I
hungover. Like, what is
I
that?
don't sleep well and I
The
just feel
sleep.
like, yeah. And it's like,
Yes.
yeah.
It's the exactly goosebumps again. Like for me, the sleep is so impacted, and we're talking like two glasses of wine. Like I'm
No.
not getting wasted, and so
No.
I didn't subscribe to the movement, but I'm really being mindful of how I feel. And then listen, then it becomes a choice. Like, do you want to feel like shit the next day? Great, go for it. You have free will,
Yeah. It's
right?
not even the next day for me. It's like I don't feel back to normal for like 3 days. And I don't feel terrible. It's just literally my energy. I'm not like as vital and I feel like I'm not as expansive. And it's just I can feel my energy is heavier, you know?
100%.
Yeah.
I had another great conversation with a friend who's, you know, similar, exact same similar conversation. And what we arrived at was, listen, when you choose to have some drinks, a glass of wine, I mean, mezcal here is freaking
I
phenomenal.
love
And
tequila.
it's like,
That's my drink.
and then you just make like this is your choice. And then you're not making spiritual decisions. You're not trying to connect to your intuition. You're
Yeah.
not focused on elevated frequency. You're choosing that and you're choosing to have fun with it. And so there's no guilt, shame attached around it. It's just a choice.
Yeah.
And so that's how I'm working through alcohol and anything else that I know intelligently, not even intuitively, that
Yeah.
is not good for me, right? Like we're still having a human experience. The other thing with that, so when it comes to like energetics and frequency, so that's the deep dive work that I've done over the last 3 years. It's so simple. Every single one of us and every single thing around us is energy. It holds a
Yeah.
vibration. And so the simplest way to have a visualization around this is our energy is boomeranging out. So whatever we put out there is going to come back
Yeah.
to us. So
Yeah.
when we can more consciously choose a higher vibration, well, that's what we're putting out there. And that vibration is becoming an energetic match for the house,
Yeah.
right? Not the house, but the house. Maybe for the houses.
It might be for me. Yes,
It might be for
exactly.
the houses.
But just to
But then,
even get a little more granular, for people, like your energy really is your emotions. So
yes,
every emotion has a frequency and a
yes,
vibration, and the higher the frequency, like love, gratitude, I don't know, name some others. And then
yeah.
there's the lower ones are fear, anger, overwhelm, like
Shame
those are, and so what you're feeling on the inside is literally projecting out, what is it, like
out.
3 meters or something like that, out into the space around you. And people sense it. Like when you walk into a room, you can feel tension, or
Yeah.
when someone's around you, you can sort of sense that they're a lower or higher vibration. You might not be able to pick up exactly what it is or what the problem is, but people are reading off of that. And so similarly, so is the universe, and so is everything else around you.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that really was for me was, especially it's easier said than done, right? Like when things are going well and you've got a great energy and like, it's easy to maintain that. But the real work is obviously when things are not going well and consciously trying to shift your energy, because I saw you did a post that sort of said, what was it? I had a note here on this, was about it was about identity shifting. So this is kind of part of that, is about what you're feeling on the inside is going to, like you said, boomerang out to you, but it's also going to be reflected in your reality in your 3D world. So, shifting your energy when shit's not going well has been my greatest work over the last 2 years,
Yeah.
knowing that like in order for me to attract the people and circumstances that I want in my life, if that's imperative.
Exactly. And I feel like this whole first part of this conversation really was about feelings, right? It's about generating the feelings that we desire and at the same time not bypassing the human experience, right? We come with a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions, and they come in, come out, and they're, being moms and wives and friends and daughters and all the things comes with that's a whole other layer outside of business. And so that's where the work happens. It's in those micro moments. Like, yes, you can create your perfect setting and go meditate. Yes, important. And how do you react or respond when shit hits the fan? When your children are hitting each other, when you get rejection after rejection, when your friend's being an asshole, like how do you react? Like that's the work. And
Yeah.
so for me, it's paying attention to those micro moments and having awareness of those. And each time choosing a different response. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't lose your shit. You're human, right? It's part of the journey. And
Yeah.
then you're not hard on yourself. You just recognize, okay, I didn't really act like my highest self there.
Yeah.
And what would I do differently next time?
It's so
You know?
funny you say it like that because I literally had that conversation the other day. I was like, I didn't like how I showed up in that moment. I feel like I could have done a better job.
Yeah. And yesterday I did the same thing. Like my kids ambushed me after school of like, can I have a play date with this person? Instead of being like, hi, mommy, I missed you all day. And my reaction was like, excuse me, I'm in the middle of a conversation and you're ambushing me to have a play date with someone who's not this person's child. So I'm going to ask you to let me finish. And then I apologized to the mom. I said, the way I responded to Maya was not how I wanted to respond. And yet, like, my human was ambushed.
Yeah.
And that's how I decided to react. And so, again, I had the awareness. I didn't like how I responded.
Yeah.
I spoke to Maya about it. I said, Maya, like, what I would love is when you ran out of school, you gave me a big hug and you said, hi, mom, instead of right away ambushing me about a play date, especially when I'm in a conversation with another adult.
Yeah.
Right. So again, it's like recognizing and then not feeling guilty or going in a spiral, saying like,
Yeah.
hey, I fucked up.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah. Even like something that's a bit different when I feel like I've acted out of alignment with who I would like to be or the way I want to react, is I do apologize to my kids or whoever's around me. Like that taking of
yes,
accountability right away instead of just like sitting with it and not like, I feel like that really also helps that moment pass,
yes.
and when you sort of say, hey, right, like you acknowledge it towards that person. I think that's also something that has come through my growth in my
Yeah.
30s and being like, strong enough and vulnerable enough to be able to say, hey, I didn't like how I just handled that, instead of
Exactly.
just like hanging on to it. Like I feel like in my 20s I would do it, not like it, but then like, I was sort of like attached to it and like couldn't,
Yeah,
separate
just
myself
sit,
from
like
it.
allow it to sit in you, and then you just go down
Yeah.
spirals, and you don't want that energy to sit in you anyways.
Yeah, exactly. So you work with a lot of entrepreneurs. What are some of the most successful entrepreneurs? What are some of the skills that they have? Like top three, like the things that you see over and over again. These are the skills that really define, the people who go further.
One, I would say, is that devotion and commitment.
Yeah,
So that's towards the business, that's towards family, that's towards themselves and their self mastery and growth and evolution. Like you see that, like devotion. And I've been calling it like my obsession. Like, yeah, right now
yeah,
I am my biggest obsession. And I'm really in love with the work that I'm doing on self. And, that's something that's so easily outsourceable. Like, oh, I'm going to go to the next healer, or I'm going to go and, bring it outside of you. But the depth has come from like calling myself out on my bullshit
yeah,
and being really uncomfortable with the things that don't feel good and then choosing differently and making that my biggest project right now. So devotion and commitment, I would say another one is consistency. Like right now, gosh, we've known each other for what, over
6 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
6 years, and it's, yes, we've had pivots and shifts, but then there's been this commitment and this consistency to showing up and showing up for our vision, showing up for the impact that we desire to have. And like I said, it comes with pivots, it comes with all the things, and yet we still show up consistently. So I see that as a common trait. And I would say another big thing, and this kind of goes hand in hand, is people who ask, like, and I have these conversations with my friends and my clients, is a lot of women especially have a really hard time asking for what they need. So that's one.
Yes.
But the other side of that, which I have a really hard time with, I have no fucking problem asking. Like I asked myself onto this podcast with you. But the
Yeah, and
second
I loved
that
it. I was like, absolutely. Let's do
but
it.
I could have been like, hey, friend, invite me. But I was like, no, I'm going to send a professional pitch because that's what I'm doing. And, even though we're friends, I'm sending everyone pitches. Like, why would
Yeah.
you not get a pitch? Right.
Thanks,
So,
babe.
again, that professionalism. And, but on the other side of asking is receiving. So I actually struggle with receiving because what I've
Me
noticed,
too.
and actually one of my coaches and friends called me out on it, is like, you receive, but right away you want to give back. And that's not
Yeah.
actually receiving. So receiving is knowing that the way the law works, the law of reciprocity, is like it comes to you. You don't need to give it out right away. You'll
Yeah.
eventually give it out and maybe to someone else, or right, like it's the law of reciprocity. But for me, for some reason, it comes in, I receive, I'm grateful, and then I have to give right away. And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, like no one's keeping tabs. Eventually, you will give, and likely to someone else in a different way, where the
Yeah.
law continues to flow, the energy continues to flow. So I've
Yeah.
been with that because, yeah, I was called out on it. I was like, okay. So this week, my self mastery is looking at receiving
Yeah.
and truly like receiving without the need to give right away.
Yeah. So even for me, like I find myself like someone wants to like do something for me or buy something or like whatever it is. And I'll go, you don't have to do that. Like that's my first thing. Like you don't have to do that. Like it makes me like uncomfortable or and it's sometimes like I would want that thing even, but it's like I feel so like how can I or whoever is sort of feeling the same way or does the same thing like so what is the coaching around that? Like when that's your natural tendency, like do you just let it happen? Oh, even just talking about letting it happen is making me so uncomfortable. Like
Well,
'cause it
and
makes me
and here's
feel like I'm like not needy, but like, I don't know, it makes me uncomfortable. And why? Because like I love giving too. So like I don't know why it makes me feel that way.
But listen to this, like you're literally blocking the flow of
Yeah.
abundance. Like it is a gift for that person. And I'm assuming that person would not give if they couldn't or didn't want
Yeah.
to. So
Yeah.
you're fucking cutting the flow of
Yeah.
abundance, girl. As
I
am I.
know.
So we got to stop
So,
that because that's literally what's happening is like someone wants to give, that's abundance. You're saying, oh no, because I'm not worthy or whatever subconscious thought pattern is
yeah.
behind that underlying it. And we're literally cutting off the flow of abundance and the gift that it is for that person
Yeah.
who's giving. Like we're cutting off their gift of giving.
I
Like,
don't know why I do that.
hello, we're being assholes.
Yeah.
So let's not be assholes and
Because
let's
I think
receive.
somewhere in my mind, I'm like, maybe they feel like obligated to, and I don't want them to feel obligated to. So that's why I'm saying, like, you don't have to do that.
Okay,
You know what I
but
mean?
hold
I
on.
don't know what it is.
But your own pattern of giving, when you give, do you feel obligated to give?
No.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's move on. I wanted to also talk about like energetic alignment. So now that we've sort of like outlined a little bit what energy is, can we talk about energetic alignment and if it ties into the identity shifting that you work with a lot of your clients on? Like what is identity shifting and why should someone be using it? How do they do it? All of that.
Mhm. So energetic alignment comes back to that feeling inside. Like once you cultivate this practice of self-awareness, you'll be able to hear, feel your intuition more, and you'll be able to know what in alignment and out of alignment feels like for you in your
Yeah.
body. Right? Like you just know. And then sometimes it's a gut feeling. For me, oftentimes it's this like pressure. Like I feel in up like a pressure here and the pressure on
When
my
it's
upper
out
back.
of
And I'm
alignment.
when it's out of
Yeah.
alignment. Yeah. And there's that like resistance and this like contraction. Like I
Yeah.
feel it.
Yeah. I feel a
And
contraction too. It's like,
yeah. So it's your physical speaking and saying like, hey, okay, this is something to pay attention to. But when I think about like the stupid shit I did in my 20s, and again, non-judgment, just awareness.
trust me, girl,
Like,
I did like enough stupid shit. Yeah. I might take the award
so
for that.
on that stupid shit, what I've been recently doing is loving on the Anna who did those things
Yeah.
because I shamed her. I, was embarrassed and, whatever feeling it came with, like I'm literally sitting in my mind and, I clearly remember the outfits I was wearing when the things that I labeled as, things that I did that I'm not proud of, I
Yes.
can see it. And then I go into like forgiveness, like, I love you. You were just trying to figure shit out, and I get it. And you didn't have
Totally.
guidance, and you didn't know.
Yeah. When
And
I think
so,
Dr. Phil says, when you know better, you do better. And you're just making decisions with the tools you have at the time, right?
exactly. And listen, we were just trying to figure life out. We were in our 20s.
Yeah.
I think it scares the shit out of me because having daughters and young children, it's like, oh my God, what are they going to do? But
I'm in for a real treat, I think, if it's like
oh
karma.
my gosh. So sitting with that and like, like really just loving on her, like she was just trying to figure
Yeah.
shit out.
Yeah.
And trying to find her identity, right? Like we were trying and think about like the teenagers, think about the early 20s, like you're just trying to figure out who you are. And if you don't have guidance and mentorship like that early on, well, it's you, yourself, and you trying to figure it out in the big world.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like having compassion for that. So feeling into that identity, forgiveness work, and then this is how you create the new
Yeah.
identity, right? So
Let's talk about
just
that. For people who want to like move into a new space, what is that all about and how does that look?
yeah, so we might as well like for continuation, and this is that big number that's radically expansive and very uncomfortable at times. So let's say 1 million a month because we want to expand to everyone listening to this replay. It's it's sitting with again, and it's sitting with yourself in visualization in a quiet space. First, you can jot it out. Actually, one of my clients did something brilliant as I was bringing this work to her this week. What she did is she actually wrote it out.
Hmm.
So we know these exercises from Bob Proctor is you
Yeah.
write out your future self. Who is she? How does she feel? What does she wear? Who does she surround herself with? How does she think? What are the words that she speaks? So she wrote everything out. The car she drives, the
Fun.
home she lives in, all of it. Then she put it through ChatGPT. Now, I don't remember the prompt, but she said what it came out was freaking phenomenal. So I'm going to drop the prompt in the comments here.
Okay, amazing.
And and the prompt supported her to really get into this identity. Like it supported her. So she created it, ChatGPT refined it. And over the last few days, it's been something that, yes, she's reading, but the most important work here is like, sure, read it so it's front of mind, but it's to get into the feeling of her. Like, how does she feel? So now
Yeah.
you have the car, you have the house, you have the accolades, you have the things that you desire. You know what you're wearing, how she's dressing, like how does she feel?
Yeah.
And then taking that feeling and every single day consciously choosing to show up as her. So like when I go pick up my kids at school, I'm aware of what I'm wearing now, and it's not about the external, but it's how that thing makes you feel.
Mm.
So I'd always go in my workout clothes, but I'm like, today I'm going to put on my earrings and I'm going to maybe dress up a little bit more. And it kind of creates this posture of like, well, I'm showing up as the identity of me that I'm creating and it's future casting. And yet you're bringing it into the now and
Ooh, I love
embodying her
that. So you're
now
making decisions now based
based
on
on
that vision and you're acting as if. right? In the future,
Yes,
even.
and
That's
there's
fun.
also this talk of like, the era of fake it till you make it, but it's not. Like you're
Yeah.
really creating this identity and it's you. It's just you are bringing a lot more awareness and consciousness into how you're thinking, the words you're speaking, how you're feeling, how you're acting, how you're showing up.
Yeah.
And that's where that like collapse of timelines happens because you're like, ooh, I created her, but I became her.
Yes. It's like, yeah, creating Sabrina 2.0 or Anna 3.0,
Yes.
whatever, and then, making those decisions now and behaving as if now. That's really
Exactly.
powerful.
And see goosebumps, like making decisions as her. So would that version of me say yes to this opportunity that just presented herself? Or
Yeah.
am I just saying it from, the current reality and what is? So you make decisions more effectively. Would you make that investment? Would you spend that money on that thing? Like, I'm contemplating right now. So one decision that I made last year is each year I want to add a new tool into my toolkit as I'm leaning and integrating more of my feminine energy. And so last year I became certified as a sound healer. And
Ooh. Oh, I saw you
this,
doing sound bowls. That's amazing.
and it's not like it's a big part of my brand, but hey, I'm hosting retreats in Mexico. And so now I don't need to outsource the sound. I get to do it. And I've had some cool opportunities to do some local events and retreats. And this year I'm looking at, okay, I had this like love-hate relationship with breath work. And now
Yeah.
I'm like really attracted to it. And
Like
so
the
I'm looking,
crazy one that's like building, building, and the fire crazy one.
I don't
It's a
like
lot of
that one.
work.
I don't like that one. I like the calming to the nervous system because I already hold so much fire within. And
Mm.
so I'm exploring three different certification programs. And yesterday, they're all very different. And so I'm really feeling into it. One, like, who do I want to be surrounded with for 6 months? Right. So I'm not even looking
Yeah.
at the price tag. They're all, two of them are same price. One is way lower. And yet I don't think that's the environment that I want to be in for 6 months.
Yeah.
So I'm making a decision from my highest self. And yet you can see there's still logic around it. And there's this feeling of like, ooh, okay, like who do I want to be surrounded with? Who do I want to give my energy to? Who's going to give me their energy? And so I've narrowed it down to breath work, and yet now I'm like, ooh, who am I getting certified by?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I want to be mindful of your time. We're sort of like at the hour mark, but I did have a bunch of questions, but I want to pick one here just to sort of bring it into this parenting place because, as more evolved people, we want to give our kids the tools that maybe we learned in our 20s, but giving it to them earlier in life. And that was essentially part of the premise around Love Powered Co, right? It was about
Yeah.
raising your kids with affirmations. So, what are some of the things that you are doing differently with your kids that maybe not everyone is doing? And maybe just a couple of things that a parent who would like to bring more, would like to raise more awakened children, what are some of the things that they can do and sort of the shifts that you've seen in your kids?
Yeah, what's so interesting in this phase right now is, and I have goosebumps again, and it's like a million degrees right now. You know, I've raised them on the foundation of affirmations and mindfulness. And the real work is in the real moments. And so the other day, my older daughter, who's 9 now, says, I'm not beautiful. And I
Oh,
was like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm like, we've been doing this work. And I was joking. I didn't say that to her, but I was like, holy
that's what you're
shit.
thinking.
That's what I was thinking. And I
Yeah,
said to her, I said, Maya, you're so beautiful. And yet what I say doesn't actually matter. What
doesn't matter.
matters is what you feel and what you think. And so what I've layered on is now mirror work. Right. So now, like, it's a tool in my toolkit. So as they brush their
Mhm.
teeth, we sit in front of the mirror, and I could see the discomfort of her speaking to herself in the mirror saying, I am beautiful. And she starts doing funny faces and she's
Yeah,
being silly. And I say, Maya, like, let's just really focus on this. And I want you to look at your eyes and like, look how beautiful they are, but I want you to feel it. And so it's like in these moments where I get to lean on the tools that I have in the toolkit, and 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 work through it, because it's not like perfection doesn't exist. Their souls came here for their human experience to heal whatever needs to be healed from, past lifetimes, whatever you believe. That's what I believe. And it's like everyone's on their journey. So I could do all the things, and yet it's the presence and the awareness and the mindfulness in these little moments. Because if I wasn't present, I wouldn't have heard that maybe.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's just being like really hyper present and aware with them and supporting them as they're figuring out their identity. And this is, right now they have awareness, like especially 9 years old, there's now awareness of clothing the kids wear,
Yeah.
and awareness of the new big teeth growing in, and it's a lot more than ever before. And so, one thing she's struggling with is her teeth are coming in crooked. And it's like, listen, like this is just part of growing up.
Yeah.
And what we're doing with you is we have an expander, but in order to give your teeth space, like you need to wear this expander. And so, right, it's like having those moment to moment conversations. And yesterday I realized, I'm like, okay, so 6.5, Maya just turned 9. I'm really feeling we need to go back to our mommy daughter dates where it's just me and her solo.
Yeah. Solo time.
Right. So it's like, and sometimes like we do it every week and sometimes we don't. And now I'm like, ooh, there's my intuition. This is something that I need to bring back into our weekly rhythm. So
Yeah.
I'm going to do that. And it's like that, but it's because you're doing the work, you're more aware, you're more conscious, and you're witnessing and supporting them, because it's also like this realization is like we can talk, but they're going to do what we do. And so if we don't radically love ourselves, then how can they? So that's a big piece of it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And just, yeah, being more aware about how I speak about my body or, once I've gained a few pounds, so like about getting that off. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I do say to her, to focus on being fit, not skinny, it's a whole thing. And I
Yes.
can't even believe I'm having these conversations and she's 10,
She's
right?
10.
So, and my son,
Okay.
yeah, and my son is going to be 9 next month. So and he's starting to get into that too. They just become a lot more aware of their bodies
Yeah.
and how they present themselves to the world and comparing to the other kids and all of that kind of stuff. So I hear mirror work and I hear affirmations and just being, I guess, do you have a mindfulness practice with them?
Yes, and again, you doing the work,
Yeah.
right? Because if you're doing, like, if us as parents are doing the work, therefore we are more mindful and aware and present to support them as these things come up. So,
Yeah.
yeah, before bed, we always talk about our gratitude. So I'm like, scan your day. What are you grateful for from the day? And then we finish off, what are your bedtime affirmations? So they speak their affirmations. It's interesting to witness the words, the vocabulary, get bigger, and I just love how each night it's
Yeah.
different. So Maya's focused on I am beautiful every night, and yet there's other layers. They're loving skateboarding. I'm loving skateboarding. I'm smart. I'm resilient. I'm creative.
Ooh.
Like I love it.
So do they come
It-
up with their own affirmations?
yes. So we do the love powered cards. We have them all. We do them. We choose the cards. And then when the lights are off, I ask both of them to scan their day and share with me what they're so grateful for. And then to say their 3 affirmations before bed that they repeat.
And how many times do they repeat it?
Soph's doing this thing now where it's 3 times each word. So she
Yeah.
does like 3 affirmations, but times 3.
Yeah.
And then Maya says it just once, and yeah, it's interesting. I can tell they're really mindful of it because they are unique and different each
Yeah.
time, each night.
Yeah. And you've raised them with them. So this isn't, this is sort of like this is all they know. Like affirmations are totally normal. So I think affirmations are something that I'm going to start to incorporate into my kids now that they're a little bit older. And yeah, I love that. Okay, so in summary, like if you had one piece of advice that you could share to viewers, like what is really on your heart right now? What are you finding is in the collective or with your clients, something that maybe keeps coming up that you think will help, like intuitively?
Mm. So 2 things. One is if you have that vision, that idea, that thing, that passion, the purpose on your heart, like just go for it. Like once you decide, all of the universe conspires in your favor. Like you just have to decide. that's one. And two, become fiercely committed and devoted to your inner world, your inner work. And, really our outside world is a reflection of our inner world. And so become committed to that, devoted to it. And again, once you decide, your mentors, your books, your coaches, your programs, like things will appear, they will
Yeah,
show up for you.
that is
And
so
trust
true.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they don't show up until you decide. It's almost like your world is this big place, but you just have this flashlight and you can, so it's like you're only lighting up that little bit in front of you, but you have to take a step and then it lights up and it like, boop, then like new
Yes,
things show up and then you take another step. I totally
exactly what
find that
it
to
is.
be true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So where can people find you? Where can they connect with you?
yeah, so we're here on Instagram _Anna Lozano, and then my website's annalozano.com for all the things I got going on.
Amazing. I love that. And I'm super jelly you're in Mexico. I feel like it's something that's on my list. But anyway, I have my own path and it'll all figure itself out.
I
But
love it. Well, let's bring a whole bunch of kick-ass real estate agents to Mexico for like a really awesome retreat.
that would be fun. Or even just female founders. I have this female founders group. We're going to do another brunch. I'll be announcing that. It's going to be at the end of April. But yeah, I just feel like women who are building, women
Yeah,
who are building businesses and communities. I feel like, creating, that's something that's been on my heart recently is really creating space and intentionally seeking out these types of women to have those relationships because I think it just makes us all stronger,
I love it. Well, I am planting a seed. Let's collaborate on a retreat. I have all the amazing people, activations, experiences ready to go. We
Oh,
just need to put the group together.
I'm booking a time in your calendar for next week. It's happening. You know me. I'm like, we're gonna do it. It's gonna be amazing. And then it's like, bam, 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 we're done.
And then it's done. I love
Yeah.
it. So it's declared. We've made a decision,
I
and
love
so
it.
it is.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Anna. I love you. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you. It's been so fun watching your journey and your success. And yeah, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me. We'll talk next week.
Yay. Okay.